we move to video number 3. Mr. Singh, you have had a varied and long experience with tenures in Kohima, Punjab, Assam, with the National Security Board, Advisory Board. With that in mind, what would you point out as the major priorities for the law enforcers, for the government to combat insurgency and extremism in our country?
See, firstly I would say that talking of insurgency and terrorism, there are certain general principles which I will talk about, but every area wherever there is insurgency or terrorism or extremism, I think that first thing we need to do is to study the problem in depth. What has caused that insurgency? What has caused that extremism? Why are people up in arms? You see, people don't take to arms just for the heck of it. There are certain grievances, there are certain issues where they feel hurt and they feel that they are not getting justice, and therefore they take up arms. Those reasons must be understood, and there must be a deep study of why the problem has arisen. Once you know the problem and once you have done the correct diagnosis, honest diagnosis and not a political diagnosis, then the solution becomes easier. But talking generally, because you have mentioned insurgency and extremism in general. You see, while dealing with insurgency, firstly I would say the local police should take the lead. In India, unfortunately, the state governments find it convenient to outsource fighting of insurgency to central armed police forces. That doesn't work. And it has been, the greatest example is Punjab itself, where I was associated with that as IGBS of Punjab Frontier. But the beauty of our anti-terrorist operations in Punjab was that Punjab police took the lead in anti-terrorist operations, and the Border Security Force and the CRPF and even the Indian Army, we were supplementing the efforts of the Punjab police, and we were there to aid and advise them. But what is happening in the Naxal affected areas, you find that the states have outsourced it to the center in most of the states. So the first thing is that the state police has to take the lead in fighting insurgency, for the simple reason that they know the area, they know the terrain, they know the language, they know the people, they know the routes. So they should take the lead, and whatever assistance is to be provided by the CAPF, that should be forthcoming. That is point number 1. Point number 2, I think grievance redressal and analysis of the causes, and following that grievance redressal is very important. What has led to that insurgency? Those causes need to be analyzed honestly, as I said, and whatever causes have given rise to that insurgency, to the extent it is possible to meet their demands within the constitution, those should be met. If there are any genuine socio-economic problems, those need to be addressed. Once the grievance goes, the possibility of insurgency also tapering off becomes brighter. A third major point which I would emphasize is that our effort should be to win the hearts and minds of the people. I mean, yes, security forces operations are necessary and they should be conducted wherever required, but at the same time the general population should not be alienated. General population should feel that these forces have come to operate against those men who are really insurgents, who are carrying weapons, who are waging war against the government. The average villager should not feel harassed. He should feel that the security forces are there to protect us, and we should, as I said, try to what is called in army terminology WHAM, winning hearts and minds. That should be a major component. I think these 3 by way of general principles should be enough, and of course every area has to, you can't have one size fits all. Every area will require a different treatment. What was successful in Punjab, you can't apply that remedy in Kashmir. Kashmir will require a different treatment. Northeast would require a different approach.
Okay, but these 3 steps,
would apply anywhere.
Now, my point is that who can implement these 3 steps? Would it be a political step at the center, at the state, or it is something that the police administration of the particular states have to be sort of concerned about it?
It has to be taken up by the state government. with the cooperation of the center. There should be complete synergy between the center and the state in the matter, and they should understand and they should appreciate on, and there should be complete coordination on these 3 points.
Right. Now I come to a specific article that appeared in Indian Express recently, and I saw this article carried the heading Healing Touch on Rebels. This was Indian Express 8th May 2023, and a very sort of informative, well written article. You need to be complimented. However, I have a question with regard to one of your suggestions, which calls for, to my mind, an elaboration. Therein, on one hand, you had said and you made a mention of territorial domination, overall strategic plan, and the Maoist problem being multidimensional. Now, that was on one side. But I found that in the next paragraph, it was urged that development paradigm should not be imposed, and this WHAM, winning hearts and minds of the people, is the trick. Now, how would you like to reconcile?
No, there is no clash or there is no contradiction in what I have said. You see, on the one hand, the security forces have to establish their dominance. See, that is absolutely must. You have to establish your dominance, because then alone they will come to the negotiating table, then alone they would think of surrendering, then alone they will think of joining the mainstream. Their pressure has to be built there, and there has to be a strategic plan for that. And at the same time, you see, there is a lot of talk about development, that once you develop the area, the problem will go. No, but what kind of development? That is very essential. That development should be acceptable to the tribals. What is happening today, you see, the Planning Commission appointed an expert group, of which I was also a member in 2008, and we studied the problem in great depth. We felt that development is being imposed. You see, the problem with the tribals is not what do they need? You see, I have gone to the most interior villages which are affected by Maoist violence. They talk generally of 2 things only. They need schools, they need hospitals. As far as you provide these, they are happy, and so long as you don't disturb their way of life. What we are doing, we are imposing development in the sense that, for example, you decide to establish a steel plant or a fertilizer factory or any other big plant. What do you do in the process? You acquire, say, about 1,000 acres of land. 1,000 acres of land means firstly deforestation, and then it means deforestation. It also means displacement of tribals. Those tribals have to be removed. They are uprooted. They have to go elsewhere. No, they don't want this kind of development. They don't want this kind of development where you are disturbing their way of life. Their way of life is closely linked with the forest, and you deforest the area. So that way you are disturbing their way of life, and then you displace them. And for several years, for decades, there was no rehabilitation policy. Now, of course, there is a rehabilitation policy is on paper. Now, how much of it is implemented and how many people really get rehabilitated is a different matter. But even if you rehabilitate, you see, imagine the trauma of a man whose father and his forefathers have been living there for hundreds of years. Suddenly you say that now you have to go away from here. We will find another, we'll give you another piece of land, but I mean, he is attached to that land, and you are uprooting him. So he gets angry. He gets angry.
Emotional disturbance.
So development is fine, but development which is really needed and which will merge with the ethos and the lifestyle of the tribals, and not development which suits the industrialist Mr. X or Mr. Y.
Thank you. You have brought it out in a very candid fashion. This brings us to the end of video number 3, and in the next video we move to a specific police administration and dealing with the police personnel. Thank you.